If you've been wanting to try watercolor but didn't know where to start, this gentle fall tree painting is the perfect place. So slow down, grab a warm drink, and let's paint something simple yet beautiful together. All right, let's first grab our watercolor supplies. I have here my palette of watercolor paint. I can't fit the whole thing in my videos, so usually I have it turned to the yellow, blue, and green side. But with these lovely autumn colors, besides maybe a little bit of Gamboge, I'm going to mostly be using the other side of my palette today. So I'll turn that around so that you can see everything really good. I also have a paper towel and some clean water, and then of course we need some brushes. I'll be using a couple from my personally designed Craftamo set today. I think we only need 2 of these, and they are both on the smaller side of things. First, I'll grab the number 3 round, and then the thin number 1 rigger. And just as a side note, I'm excited to say that Craftamo is going to let me put out another batch of these that are actually in production right now, and they will be ready in just a month or so. So make sure you sign up to be notified when they are ready. I'll put a link for those in the description of this video so that you can be among the first to know when they are ready. All right, next up, we need some watercolor paper. This is cold press, 100% cotton, Arches brand, but you can use whatever brand or type you prefer. And then today, I do have a little outline to use for this piece. The thing about this, though, is that you could actually paint this very similar in a free-handed way if you prefer to paint that way. I personally do better if I have a little bit of a guide, so if you're like me and find outlines helpful, I will put this drawing in my Etsy shop so that you can have it. All you have to do is print it out and trace it right onto your watercolor paper using a light table or even just a well-lit window in your house, and then you'll be all set to paint. And don't worry, the outline looks a little bit complicated at first, but trust me, it's easier than it looks. I'll just go ahead and tape my paper down with some artist tape, and then we can get started painting. And as a side note, I will leave a link for my Etsy shop, as well as information and links to any of the other products you see me using today in the description of this video if you're interested. And another side note, last week, I know it might seem a little bit early, but for those of you who like to paint your own Christmas cards or paintings and like to give them out as Christmas gifts to family and friends, last week I did put out an early bird Christmas tutorial for those of you who like to get a jump head start on things. So make sure you check that out. It's a little bit unique, really pretty, and so fun to paint. Now, before I jump into painting, this is an optional step, but because some of my autumn leaf colors are more on the lighter side of values, I want to just lighten up my pencil lines a little bit. All I'm doing here is taking a kneaded eraser and rolling it up into a snake or hot dog shape, and then I just simply roll it over the page and just take off some of that loose graphite, and this lightens up the drawing without erasing it completely. This is optional, of course, or you could even try drawing your outline with watercolor pencils instead, and then it will just kind of blend into your painting later. Just whatever you want to do. For my first color, I think I'll try some raw sienna. I'll just pull a little bit of that color out on my tray using the number 3 round. Then I'll kind of paint this on in layers. So the base layer I paint on here, I want to be a little bit lighter in value. So to do that, I'm just taking a little bit of extra water in my brush along with some paint, and that kind of just lightens and dilutes it down a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and fill in the leaves of the first tree. And if you feel like the color is still a little bit too dark as you begin to spread it around, go ahead and pull out a little bit more water and add that in there, and that's just going to lighten it up even more. And at this point, I'm really not worrying about following the pencil lines exactly. That is really just meant to be a guide. I'm not sticking to it perfectly. Don't take a ton of time on this. It should go fairly quickly. Okay, great. This is a nice light base layer of color. While this layer is wet, let's take the darker version of the raw sienna, or what I just have here on my tray, and add in a few dabs or spots of color onto the tree to add not only a bit of dimension, but create more of a look of individual patches or groups of leaves. Keep in mind to just paint this darker color on just one half or one side of the tree. That way we can also create the illusion of a light source on the other side. I'm choosing to focus the darker color on the left side of my trees. That looks pretty good. Now I'll go ahead and just add a touch of detail to the tree by painting in some spots or splashes of color around the tree here and there that could represent maybe some falling leaves. In fact, while I'm at it, I might even add some extra dots of color around or touching the edges of the main tree leaves as well. And this is going to finish off the look and maybe make the edges of the paint look a little bit more organic. All right, that is all there is to that. Really not too hard, right? So let's go ahead and paint in the next treetop in exactly the same way. But this time, I'm going to change up my color a little bit. Why don't we pull out some cadmium red and see what that might look like? As I'm getting this color out, I feel like I personally might want to tone down the brightness just a little bit and make it a little more cohesive with what I've got going on so far. So maybe I'll mix the red into the raw sienna here. I think I like that much better. Okay, let's go ahead and paint in the next leaves in the same ways we just did, starting with the lighter base layer first and then adding in the darker color while it is still wet. And if you're worried about the base layer drying out too quickly before you can get the darker colors in, you actually can add that in whenever you want to. You'll have to be the judge of what your painting needs. This is such a fun piece. Autumn time is my absolute favorite time of year. The colors, the smells, fresh apples from the trees, the crunching of leaves, and the slightly cooler weather just feeds my soul. So it's enjoyable for me to capture this on a piece of paper. The great part about this piece is that it really is simple and uncomplicated. It is totally beginner friendly and it's just relaxing and fun, even for advanced painters. I think my favorite part is that in the end, even though it's such a simple painting, it really has a stunning effect to it. So I really hope you'll give it a try. If you find you are enjoying my painting and teaching style today, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming tutorials. All right, very good. We just have one more tree to color in, and then all that's left is painting in the trunks and bare branches, and we can call this piece done. For the third tree, I think I'd like to try a yellow color. I really love the color Gamboge. It's one of my favorite yellows to use because it is just so rich and warm, perfect for an autumn painting too. I might even just mix in a touch of the red-brown down here as well, just again to tie those colors together, keeping everything very cohesive. Not a lot though. We still want the color to stay yellow. I might add in more of the reddish brown into the yellow when I'm ready to start painting in the darker spots, but the base layer is more of the straight Gamboge. But let's go ahead and paint this in the same way as we've been doing. And I forgot to say earlier that even if you choose to use my outline for this painting, you can change it up and add whatever you want. If you want more leaves or bigger leaves or extra branches, you can absolutely do that. You don't have to stick to the outline. While I'm creating dots of color on this tree, I think I'll go ahead and just use the same color to put around the branches of the tall tree here. You're welcome to add as many or as few as you'd like, and you can also choose whatever color you want to use as well. All right, we are now ready to add in the trunks and branches of the tree next. I'll just take a touch of burnt umber and mix in a little bit of ivory black to darken that up just a little bit more. And as we get painting in these, we are going to work our way once again from light values to dark. So once as I have my nice dark brown color mixed up, I'll just take a small amount of that and make another little pile of paint off to the side that I can add extra water to. We want to make a really nice light value of brown to create the look of a distant background tree. We'll use the darker color on the main trees, and this is just going to help them stand out and be the focal point even more, to have some that are lighter and some that are darker. So I'll take a touch of that really light color we just mixed up, and still using the number 3 round, I'll pick a few trunks to paint in. Like I said though, we're going to save the main trunks for the darker browns, so any of them but those. In my outline drawing, most of these are drawn as just a straight line, but I'm painting these a little bit thicker than what you see, which is why I'm using the number 3. Because these are so light in value, it's going to be okay if they're a little bit thicker, and this also gives some variety and a change of size amongst the trunks and creates more of an interest in the piece. Okay, I only really painted in the bottom halves of these trees because as we get more towards the top, I want to make the branches more thin. So I'll go ahead now and switch over to the number 1 rigger, take some more of that light brown color, and just fill in a few of the connecting branches that go along with those trees. Now, I will say, there are a lot of little pencil lines up here if you use my outlines, but if you paint the wrong one or you miss one or add one, it really isn't that big of a deal. It all ends up even in the end, and no one looking at it will know the difference. If you feel like you want to add more or have less than what I have on here, you can absolutely do that too. We will be erasing any leftover pencil marks in the end. That also means that you don't have to follow the pencil lines exactly here either. Just don't stress about it too much. And for my viewers that have told me they have shaky hands, so straight lines are hard for them, this is the perfect piece to paint. The shakier, the better it will look. Shaky hands make for great organic and character-filled tree branches. All right, that is a great start to these. Let's go ahead and paint in a few more trees. This time I'm going to mix a bit of my dark and light brown colors together to get something sort of in between the two. I'll finish painting off any of the trees except for the main trees with the leaf colors and the 2 on the far right side. Okay, it is time now to use the darkest color of brown that we have and paint in the remaining small trunks. But we do have one big tree that we are going to save for in just a minute, but everything else should be painted at this point. All right, great job. This really is coming together nicely. All that's left to do is the one bigger tree here on the right side, in which we are going to add just a touch more detail into the trunk. I am actually going to add a little bit more ivory black into my brown color as well, just to make this even darker than the others. Now, we are going to start out with a very light base layer of color on the main trunk of this using the number 3 round brush. So I'll use the same watered down brown paint that we mixed up and used earlier, and I'll paint the main trunk of the tree with this. I'm not going to go up all the way into the thin branches yet, we're just focusing on the bottom half. Then while that paint is still wet, let's take some of the black brown paint and add just a hint of that color off to the left side of the trunk, keeping with the same shadow side as the leafy trees. Because this is wet, it is naturally going to bleed over into the other half of the trunk a little ways, so just go with the flow of the paint here. In fact, if you need or want to, you can even switch back over to the rigger brush and push a little bit of that paint into some thin lines or stripes across the trunk here. Not too many though, we don't want it to look like a zebra. Keep it loose and natural looking. Just really, we want to do what your paint is doing already. All right, I think that looks pretty good. I'll leave that as it is before I overdo it on accident. So now I'll just take some of that dark paint and start painting in the rest of the branches for this tree. Very good. I really love how this is turning out. There's only one more thing to do here to finish off the look, and that is to add in a bit of ground area. We'll kind of be painting this loose and free with the wet on wet technique, kind of like we did with this last tree trunk. So I'll start with a little bit of water over this area first, and then I'll take some of the colors from my tray and just start adding that into the space, letting them bleed and blend together. When your painting is completely dry, you can clean up your page by erasing any leftover pencil marks that you can still see. But that, my friends, is it for this lovely, simple yet stunning autumn tree watercolor. This is actually one of my personal favorite things I've painted in a while, so I'm really glad you joined me for this today. I hope you had some fun and maybe even learned something new. If you did enjoy this tutorial, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.